So this week's project is, again, I'm recording something I did as a child in D&T actually. I actually, the brief was to make a snake, but I ended up making a croc because I got lazy. I didn't want to make as many jointed pieces as everyone else, so I ended up making one that was double length with less joints. So I can't find, I know it's somewhere, it's probably in the loft, but I can't find my original Charlie the Croc. But if I do, I'll bring it out for the end of this. So I've drawn up my design based on a piece of 1x1. Now these are just kind of a pin and slot kind of joint, and I've contoured slightly for the head and tail, but the rest of it is pretty much the same. So this shouldn't be, I'm saying these things again, shouldn't be too difficult to do, because it's fairly simple cuts. I think the point is here is trying to get the cuts as precise as possible, so the joints are as precise as possible. So I've laid out my pattern pieces on my bit of 1x1, and I previously marked where the knots are before I started, so I've got an idea of where I need to stop. So first thing I really need to do is cut this into a kind of a manageable sized length, really. Okay, so I'm in the process of sanding and shaping these, and for the snake's head I've gone with a little bit of a lip and overbite slightly, just, you know, because I felt like it. So heads are going to get more of a kind of a rounding off, more of a shape, although most of that is kind of already imparted by the cutting anyway. And the body pieces, it's just kind of a general all over, and then I want the corners knocking off, because these are obviously toys, so I don't really want sharp corners anywhere. And ideally I want this tongue part to be fairly loose fitting and quite free movement. I can't really get a decent idea until I've put some pins in, but just kind of holding it in there and seeing how it moves gives me an idea of how close I am to being where I want to be. So, and for my crocodile head, because I've had to cut it in 2 pieces, and I need to glue this together before I can get on with the sanding of it, or glue it together and let it dry for a bit before I get on with anything else. So it's not quite matching up, but then didn't really expect it to. So I'm going to line it up by this line on the tongue here, so that should hopefully keep it even. So I don't need a lot of glue, just kind of a dab. There's only a dab in the bottle really. Come on. So I'm going to be quite particular about getting it onto all the surfaces, in particular the tongue bit, because it's going to have a hole drilled in the middle, and that's going to need an extra bit of support anyway. So I'm just going to push these together, and the glue's going to act as a bit of a lubricant until it's set. So I'm going to get it into rough position. Good squeeze. I'm not going to clamp this. Oh, actually, maybe I might. I might just do a couple of elastic bands just to kind of hold this together rather than the full clamping. As soon as I put them on, it's all going to shift. Not too much of a problem, it just means I have to rearrange everything every time. Right. So just a couple of elastic bands just to hold it together while that dries, and squeeze out. It's going to get sorted out in the sanding process, so I'll leave that to one side whilst I carry on with the rest. Now these are a very basic shape, which is quite easy to work with, really, she says. So I just need to get my pattern off and just start sanding, really. So the big important part of this stage of sanding is to get the joint as neat as possible, as even as possible, because that affects how everything moves. With the crocodile, it's not so much of a problem because crocs don't have that same level of flexibility as a snake. So snakes, you really need to get the sanding done. You get it done really quite well. With the croc, not so much. So I think that's probably one of the reasons why I chose to do a croc in the end. Back in the day. I think it was around about 97, so new labour and all that jazz. I was about 13 and the world was, well, the world was the world and I had nothing to do with it at that point. So I'm just going to go around and just tidy up the edges. I only really cut off the corners, so I need to really tidy those up. So I'm going to get on with the rest of these and I'll come back to you for the next step. Okay, so I've got these all shaped to a point that I like. I've deliberately kind of worked them round so that I can get most of the way round in one direction and then have full movement in the other direction. That's just kind of the way I like these to go. Although, idiot of me, blonde brain, I managed to put the holes through the wrong side of the croc. So they're going to be visible on the top, which is not ideal, whereas the snake can just be turned over. So I've got the leg holes here to put in. But never mind, these things happen. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to give it all a good wipe over with some white spirit, which should just take off the last of the kind of the sawdust and any kind of glue left over from when I glued the templates on, before I can actually start decorating these. I'm going to do kind of the decoration of the internal edges first for obvious reasons, and then work on the rest. So I'll come back to you for that bit. So I got out my pyrography tool and started pressing, essentially. I'm using the stamping heads mostly. One that's kind of concentric circles for the snake and kind of a half moon for the crocodile, with some dots and things thrown in. What I did in particular, I probably didn't come out on camera, was for the eyes I essentially just held a ball nose tip into the wood until it bored a hole, essentially, so that I had a recess to put the eyes into. So, and once that was done, as my hands attest, 1, 2, 3. So as my hands can witness, I have washed some colour onto my snake and my crocodile. I just started with a bit of basic green, just to kind of match the inner colour I put on, and did that very light, very little paint and lots of water, and just washed that mostly off so you can still see the pyro through it. And then I've added a touch of gold. Don't know how well that's going to come out on camera, just to kind of pick out some of the shapes, because the photography tool actually kind of burns out slightly, so it does leave a little valley. And I've put a couple of little red crystals in for the eyes. My legs are completely wonky, which is alarming. The back legs seem to be bigger than the front legs, which I think is actually closer to being accurate, but whatever. So my Croc's done. I decided to remove one of the pieces, so you should have had a piece between the head and the body. And I think this is a more kind of accurate, kind of more compact kind of crocodile. So it's just a body piece which is double the length of the standard link, then one link and then the tail. So I've left with quite limited movement, because Crocs don't tend to do much in the way of flexing unless they really have to. So I've left it fairly limited. I could go back and sand it all back and get it really kind of flexible, but I don't think that's necessary on this one. So that's that finished. And then my snake, who's had a coat of red, which I've washed down so that the belly stays quite light, so it gives it that two-tone effect. And I've put on a layer of bronze and a little bit of gold for some detail, and put some pearls in the eyes. So this one has inherited the extra piece from the crocodile, which I think gives it a better shape generally, to have that extra long body. Now generally you could do as many links as you like really for a snake, and it's just got a nice movement to it. This is still a little bit sticky because of the paint, but this is quite free flowing, which is really better than the one I made at school, if I remember rightly. So as my latest scroll saw project is another thing from school. And next month I don't know what I'm doing next month. Probably working on something a bit more traditional. I think that's the way I'm going to lean with scroll saw from now on. So next week, I haven't decided yet. It's going to be Thai curry or chocolate. So watch this space. So I'll see you next week. Sorry, couldn't help it.